As a result of your city or state's local decision to make you stay at home and to quarantine yourself and your family, you are probably now a homeschool parent.
Whoa. Miss Lippy, the part of the story I don't like is that the little boy gave up looking for happy after an hour.
So on today's show, we interview Sam Sorbo on Homeschooling 101. We ask her how you can become a more confident and competent homeschooling mom or dad while maintaining your sanity and helping your kids to actually excel in school. But you may find yourself asking yourself, Chef, who's Sam Sorbo? Well, Sam Sorbo...
Let me take it from here. Sam Sorbo is the American actress, author, and talk radio show host. Sorbo played Serena on the television series Hercules, The Legendary Journeys. Oh, and get this, she is one bad homeschool mother you don't want to mess with. And on today's show, she will teach you how to become the best homeschooled parent you can be.
Is this what it feels like to be you, Hercules?
I think you're just finding out how good it feels to challenge the forces of evil.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes! Thrive Nation, on today's show, we are interviewing a radio talk show host, an incredible author, a homeschooling mom. Sam, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you?
Well, it's lovely to be here, and your audience is just amazing.
Well, I appreciate you for putting up with me, and I know the audience is they try to work through the listener repulsion system that I've created here and listen to our great guests. And you, I understand, are a homeschooling mom expert now. How did you become a homeschooling mom? What happened?
I had 3 kids. My oldest was in 2nd grade, and he wasn't being served, and they were really messing it up. And so I finally just said, I could probably fail at home education and still we'd end up better off in the long run. So I just decided to give it a shot. And I was very filled with trepidation. It was one of the hardest decisions I think I've ever made. And I said to my husband, I just want to do it for the fall. And I'd love to say I never looked back, but that would be a lie, because I put him back in school about 1.5 years later for 6 weeks and then pulled them back out again. And I've been a staunch supporter ever since. And so, I wrote a book called They're Your Kids, an inspirational journey from self-doubter to homeschool advocate. But since this coronavirus thing came down, it's just been it's been massive, because the entire nation is what I now call accidental homeschoolers. And so here we are, right? And parents are just flummoxed. They don't know where to turn. So I started doing videos immediately for parents, because I understood, because I was there, right? I used to be one of these self-doubters, and just to come alongside parents and help them out. And coronavirushomeschooling.com is another website that I've sort of joined forces with, and we're offering free daily lesson plans, free. So if you go to coronavirushomeschooling.com, you can sign up for the daily lesson plans. They'll be delivered to your email inbox. And then there's also a whole community of home educators there. So if you have questions, you can ask questions on the Facebook page, or you can just reach out. And look, as homeschoolers, we're a very welcoming bunch. We want people to join our ranks.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3, 18, 16, and 14.
Now, my wife and I, we have 5 kids, and I want to make sure that I'm not putting words in your mouth. There's something you said earlier that I really connect with. You said that you were not impressed with the school system or the education process, and you thought, well, it couldn't be worse. That's kind of our rationale when we decided to homeschool the kids, was we thought it couldn't be worse. What was the most challenging part of actually homeschooling your kids?
The most challenging part, I will say, was overcoming my sense of lack of ability, my sense of inadequacy. It was overcoming that. And so I talk a lot about this because I think that, the fact that we have a whole nation of parents and their supporters who say, yeah, parents just, how are they going to get this done? They don't know. I'm sorry. If you graduated high school, but you are incapable of teaching somebody the things that you learned, then you did not learn them. So you are not educated. You've been schooled, but you haven't been educated, because the mark of education is the ability to impart that information to someone else. And so we have a whole nation of people who basically are admitting that they're not educated, and yet they're willing to send their children back into that same system.
Now, you, what state were you living in when you were trying to do school outside of homeschooling?
Oh, California.
Can you explain the jackassery of the California school system, or any school system? Because again, I agree. I know it's an extreme position, but I do agree. You almost couldn't do worse when you see the inefficiency and the indoctrination that goes on in typical school systems. But could you maybe explain some of the things that alarmed you most about the school and the education that made you decide to try homeschooling?
Well, one thing was I never got a graded book report back. And mind you, we moved to this small community for the schools. And so we were in one of those so-called good schools. But the United States is 27th in the world ranking in education. And we spend more money than almost every other nation per student. So we're not getting value for our dollars, right? And so after 5 months, after 5 book reports, I asked the teacher, and I was one of the involved parents. So I was there basically three days a week chatting with the teacher. There was a lot of communication between me and the teacher. I finally asked her, how are Braden's book reports? And she answered without missing a beat, oh, not very good. Well, I'm sorry, what? We chat a lot. I take the kids to the library. I grade papers for you. I'm in the classroom helping to clean up. I teach art in the classroom. Like I was the guilty parent, right? Who was there all the time, and never heard anything back from her. And then, and by the way, I really liked her. So I started making excuses for why this would have happened, and every excuse I came up with kind of made her look worse. And so I started doing book reports with my kid after school, and I realized that I was homeschooling. I was just doing it at the end of the day when everybody was tired and cranky and hungry, and that was basically a losing proposition. And so I say to parents, if you do homework with your child already, that is actually homeschooling. In fact, I think it's just a horrible thing that the schools send home homework with the children. So what are the children doing all day? If they have to go home, then
we're taking attendance. We're taking attendance. We're being distracted. We're doing recess. We're taking attendance. We're dealing with discipline issues. We're taking attendance. We're doing recess. We got a lot going on there. We got to. It's like the unholy triumvirate. You got to do recess, take attendance, discipline.
It's actually worse than that, because we're boring children who seek to excel, because we can't allow them to excel too far because we have to teach to the mean. And then we are challenging the children who simply can't step up to the plate too much. And those are the kids who either get bullied or they become, well, anyway, you see the paradox is we have a one-size-fits-all education system, but we don't have one-size-fits-all children.
Right. And
so the great opportunity here with coronavirus is the entire nation has been called to basically accidentally home educate. And I'm just praying for the parents out there that something sticks and that they say, wow, I actually have the ability to serve my children better than a one-size-fits-all government institution. And it's a lot more rewarding than I ever imagined, because that's the truth. And so parents out there, there's so much advice that I could give them. But one thing is, don't try to recreate school at home. Try to step up for your kids and be the parent who just wants them to learn, who just wants them to engage. So, and by the way, go to my website, samsorbo.com, and look at my videos, and go to coronavirushomeschooling.com and take a look at the curriculum options that they have there, and the daily planners, the daily agendas that they send out. And they really are doing a phenomenal job in sort of filling the gap and allowing the parents to feel capable and coming alongside and helping them.
Now, based upon your Skype image here and just doing a Google search of you, you've done acting, you've done modeling. If you Google me, you'll notice that I'm a backup hand model. If the hand model gets injured, I'm the backup hand model. Can you tell the listeners out there about your career previous to getting into becoming the ultimate homeschool mom? What kind of things have you been doing throughout your career?
Well, I went to Duke and I studied biomedical engineering, and then I left that to pursue modeling. And then I went into acting, and I met my husband, and then he nearly died. So I married him and I quit acting. And since then, it's sort of just come full circle. So now I'm back to acting. I produce films. I've written several books actually at this point.
Yeah.
Two of which are concerned with home education. And, I just, yeah.
For people out there that aren't familiar with the story, what happened with your husband?
So my husband played Hercules on the #1 show, a TV show in the world. And while he was playing Hercules, and during season 5, I think it was, he had 3 strokes, which nearly killed him and very much debilitated him. He had a 3-year-long recovery. The whole story is in the book True Strength, which is his first book. And we actually have a new book that just came out called True Faith, Embracing Adversity to Live in God's Light. And boy, it's so timely. It came out on Valentine's Day, and a couple weeks later we started the lockdown. And I'm like, talk about embracing adversity. All these parents out there who are looking at homeschooling now, they're got to stare at dead in the face now. Embrace it. That's my message. Is you've got it. You got your kids at home. Embrace it. I was just talking to a gal. She's got all 3 kids at home. Her husband's an introvert, and he said to her, is it bad that I'm not actually upset about this? Like, I get to spend time with my kids and we get to do fun things. And yeah, I have to work from home, but I'm okay with that.
So what kind of projects is your main focus right now? Is your main focus on the coronavirushomeschooling.com, or what's your main project? You have so much going on. I mean, you do acting, you do writing. There's so much you have going on. What's your main project you're working on right now?
Well, currently right now, I'm trying to get the word out for parents so that they can be calm about this new paradigm, and hopefully they can embrace it. And I really see this as a way for families to come together. And we need families in this culture because the family is the backbone of our society. It's the building block of our culture. So that's really my primary focus is everything homeschooling these particular weeks. But I do a radio show every day, and I talk about politics and religion. I'm just about to start a new TV show, so I'm excited about that. In fact, when right before I came on today, I was talking with the engineer trying to get everything set up at home now because everything's from home.
Right.
This is going to shift the paradigm substantially, because people are going to discover, you know what, I actually can home educate my children and work from home, or other things, but it will shift things for a lot of people. And my heart breaks for all the people who are losing their jobs right now. We got to get back to work. We got to turn this around.
Well, I can tell you, again, I'm sure in your radio show you're covering it, but initially when Neil Ferguson put out that initial report that predicted 2.2 million Americans were at risk of losing their lives, according to the LA Times, as well as to the reports all the reports I've been able to follow and see, and it looks as though right now the estimated number of people who are at risk of losing their lives from this is down to 61,000, which is still a terrible number. But it looks like that number's coming down quite a bit. Do you have any other numbers that you've been covering on your radio show?
Well, I saw that one, and I will say that that's commensurate with the flu. But The problem is that right now they're inflating the numbers of deaths that are attributable to corona, because they're saying, because if you look at the number of flu deaths that we have right now, the number of pneumonia deaths,
Yes.
it's zero.
Right.
Right?
Hey,
Which
real
is
quick.
absurd.
Have you heard the sound clip? Did you hear the audio from the Senator Scott Jensen from Minnesota? Did you hear him talking about the false attribution?
Dr. Jensen, I played it on the air today.
Oh, wow. I was going to say, let me cue up the audio just real quick for those out there that haven't heard it yet, and I'll let you break it down, because I think this is powerful. And then I'd love to talk a little bit about your radio show, because I know some of our listeners are going to want to check that out too. Let me cue up the audio real quick. I'm going to pull your mic down just for a second, and I'm going to pull up the sound clip. Here we go.
Well, in short, it's ridiculous. I spent some time earlier today just going through the CDC's manual on how to complete death certificates, and the parts that were specifically written for physicians. And in that manual, it talks of precision and specificity, and that's what we were trained with. The determination of the cause of death is a big deal. It has impact on estate planning. It has impact on future generations. And the idea that we're going to allow people to massage and sort of game the numbers is a real issue, because we're going to undermine the trust. And right now, as we see politicians doing things that aren't necessarily motivated on fact and science, the public's their trust in politicians is already wearing thin.
So what do you say to Dr. Fauci tonight?
Well, I would remind him that anytime healthcare intersects with dollars, it gets awkward. Right now, Medicare has determined that if you have a COVID-19 admission to the hospital, you'll get paid $13,000. If that COVID-19 patient goes on a ventilator, you get $39,000.
What is your take on that sound clip and just what the narrative and the facts that Dr. Scott Jensen is sharing?
So if you want to take a 30,000-foot view on this, you have to understand that people have different worldviews, and they do allow their worldview to color not just their perceptions, but also the projection. And so I'm concerned. For instance, Fauci came out and said, we have no choice but to do lockdown. That's patently untrue. We absolutely have a choice. We don't have to do lockdown. We could have risked the whatever millions of deaths, but we chose to do lockdown. But I don't know this for sure, although I've seen now evidence that he was a huge Hillary supporter.
Yes.
I believe that he sees the world more as a statist, which is somebody who is happy for the government to impose all kinds of limitations on otherwise free people. And so for that reason, he comes out and says, we have no choice. Well, we do have a choice. And what he's missing, and what is so just disastrous, is he also said that that it was unfortunate and inconvenient for people to stop going to work. No, it's life and death for some people.
Yes.
It is literally life and death. And he's not counting the cost. And this is a very dangerous place that we are when we have people who are very, you can see it in many of them. They're gleeful about the amount of control that they can impose on other people. And in fact, now we've got the Green Gang who are coming around and saying, okay, great, let's impose some climate restrictions. Well, they've got, look, folks, newsflash, here is the Green New Deal. No airplanes, no transportation, basically stay at home, ride your bike, no gas. Like here we are ameliorating it, so-called, we're ameliorating right now the climate. And yet the Green New Deal, this is death to a society right now, okay? And include in that the empty shelves in the supermarkets as well. So we need to take a step back, and we need to figure out, first of all, the figures are inflated. Now they're saying 61,000, but that's based on the current rate.
Yes.
And the current rate that they're reporting is wrong because it's inflated.
I have three anecdotal examples. One of my clients, and by the way, Sam, we have a Paul Hood here with us. Paul Hood, how are you, sir?
I'm great.
Paul, one of his clients, Jeff, owns a company called Boom Mobile, and Jeff wasn't feeling very well, and a family member of his encouraged him to call an urgent care to schedule a doctor's visit. And without even really going over anything with him, they told him over the phone that he had the coronavirus. And then when he went in and actually did one of those painful tests because he wanted to know, do I actually have it? And he didn't have it. But this was after they attributed him to having it. And I hear these stories over and over and over again. Do you hear these stories as well there, Sam?
No, but he clearly was miraculously healed.
Oh,
Praise Jesus. I
amen.
mean, that's amazing that they could heal him over the phone. I'm sorry. I just, here's my problem.
Yeah.
We have a country, a nation of accidental homeschoolers who are pulling out their hair and saying, I don't know how to do this. If
Yep.
you don't know enough to instruct a third or fourth or fifth grader in basic education, then you are not educated. And yet they're willing to put their children into a system that diseducated them and made them incompetent. Okay. This is a problem. You need to take a step back. If you feel that incompetent, you need to take a step back and go, so what is the plan here? And the plan ought to be DIY. Get it done yourself. You can. There are resources to help you do that. But so if you broaden that out to a general perspective, we are just allowing the government to feed us some information. It's not clear.
Yep.
It's not well thought out. It's not even correct. And we have proof that it's not correct. And yet it seems to be very few people are standing up and saying, excuse me, but this is wrong. This is incorrect. We need a better approach. Yeah, go ahead.
Have you spent a lot of time researching Mr. Neil Ferguson? Have you spent a lot of time deep diving into this man?
No.
This is very interesting, and I'll give you one link. If you go to thrivetimeshow.com, thrivetimeshow.com/Neil Ferguson, I have spent way too much time researching this man. But, Paul, Neil Ferguson is the guy who initially predicted 2.2 million American deaths.
Yeah,
would it be
just an extra zero.
Would this be interesting to know that his job right now, his current title, he is the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics that, oh, by the way, we're in a price war with the Saudi Arabians that are backing him. Sam is a homeschooling expert. She also has a talk show. Do you have any thoughts on Neil Ferguson or this coronavirus scare in general, or maybe a comment for Sam or a question for Sam? Because she has a talk show. She's breaking down the coronavirus. She's talking about the civil liberties it's violating, but she's also a homeschooling expert. You're a CPA with thousands of clients right here in the heartland. What questions would you have for Sam?
Well, Sam, I would like to know, I mean, you're an educated person. You're in the middle of this, in the middle of the war. There seems to be, on one side you got a lot of, maybe people that are kind of off their rockers a little bit about how orchestrated this is. But then you start seeing things like Clay Clark is pointing out here, and I'm going, oh, please, Jesus, don't let it be so orchestrated. But it appears to be fairly orchestrated. And my side of it is on the economic side of it, and I'm trying to funnel information up to the people that make decisions in D.C. Do you think this is, in your experience, in your opinion, how orchestrated do you think some of this stuff that's going on? Or do you think it's just random and then these other people, they jump on board?
So my answer to that is because I like a conspiracy as much as the next person, but I'm careful to sort of endorse conspiracy theories, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's important to go where the facts lead you. And for instance, there is substantial evidence that hydroxychloroquine is a solution. But my understanding is that the powers that be relegated it to the most severely affected patients. Well, the evidence that it works is predominantly in patients who don't exhibit the most severe symptoms, but they are healed. So why aren't we pursuing that? And so then I go to, okay, what is the evidence that this man has America's interests at heart? And that's where my problem comes. I believe that Donald Trump has America's interests at heart because that's what I've seen from him. And I'm not convinced that the people who are advising him on the medical side do, or they have no economic interests whatsoever. And so they're simply making clinical decisions based on whatever clinical decisions that, clinical evidence that they have. And they're not allowing some other evidence that could be very telling. So I liken it to this. You go to the doctor because you're not feeling well, and the doctor says you have cancer. So what we're going to do is, because you have cancer, and this is really the only thing we can do, is we are just going to treat the cancer for 6 to 10 weeks, and then we'll see how the cancer does. In the meantime, we won't feed you because, we're just We're just dealing with the cancer, okay? Now, at the end of 6 to 10 weeks, the cancer
Not going to feed you.
gone.
Not
But what
gonna
happened to the rest of you? You died because you weren't fed, and that's what I'm worried about with China, with the United States. We need to feed this country. We need to get back to work.
Right.
And by the way, Fauci was wrong on January 28th. No, on January 20th, I think it was. He said, "Oh, there's nothing to worry about with the coronavirus." Even after Donald Trump put the ban on China from sending planes here, he was against that. Even into February, he said, "We really, that we don't need to take measures like that, xenophobic, anti-China, all of that stuff." So he's been wrong almost as much as he is likely to have been right. And we don't even know if he's right yet. The jury's still out. But they've been wrong quite a lot. And they shut down this entire country based on 2.2 that's been completely wrong.
Neil Ferguson, baby.
But didn't he just come out, though? Just came out like yesterday or day before yesterday that blaming Trump, that if Trump would have acted earlier, he could have saved some lives.
Well, I'll tell you this.
So that was a setup, because that was Jake Tapper who basically set him up and said, "Hey, if Trump had acted, would it have been better?" And Fauci, he didn't rah President Trump, but he also didn't quite throw him under the bus. But he did say, sure, hindsight's 20/20 if we had acted more precipitously. But see, he damns himself at the same time. So it's you can play these games and fine, have at them. I'm just trying to look at the evidence and the facts. They shut the entire nation down based on a figure that was fantasy. So who came up with that figure, and what are his ulterior motives to over prognosticate the death and the destruction of this virus?
Sam, what I want to do here is I want to make sure all the listeners check out your website, coronavirushomeschooling.com. So this is what I was going to do, Paul. The way I look at it is Neil Ferguson came out and he said 2.2 million Americans might die, and then right away, without really consulting a whole lot of people, Dr. Deborah Birx and Dr. Fauci said, we got to shut it down. So I've got another guy I know by the name of Neil Ferguson, and he says everybody needs to check out this homeschooling website. Now, we don't know who this Neil Ferguson is, Paul.
Right.
But he's a Neil Ferguson. He might work for the Saudi Arabians. He might or might not be head of the Abdul Latif Jamil Institute. But don't check into who this Neil Ferguson character is. Just without even thinking, go to coronavirushomeschooling.com. Don't even question the source. Don't even, but seriously, people should check out your website. But think about the insanity of that.
It's crazy.
Think about the insanity. Right. No one even knew who he was. Well, why are we so fascinated, Sam, with this Neil Ferguson? What's the deal? Why do we like him so much?
Because we haven't been taught to question. In fact, we've been taught the opposite. We've been schooled, not educated. We've been schooled to not question our schoolmasters. And that goes all the way up to the political scale, okay? And so when our schoolmasters, i.e. our senators and politicians and people, tell us something, we follow blindly unless it disagrees with our ideology, which now we have a bunch of ideologues, and so anything that comes out of Trump's mouth, they will immediately discount. I mean, it's frightening to me how the moment that he has a win, they deride him and they say, well, he's only pandering to his base. Well, that's what politicians are supposed to do. Like what, the whole quid pro quo. Oh, it's terrible, quid pro quo. Excuse me, that's how the world works.
It is.
Why are you so upset about things? You literally have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, it's because they're so high. They're smoking. The dispensaries are still open. Alcohol consumption is up by 55%. I mean, there's a lot of vices going on. The calls to the emergency hotlines now for mental health are up over 800%, according to CNN. But seriously, folks, if you want to homeschool your kids effectively, while not losing your sanity, if you want to become a confident and competent homeschooling mom or dad, check out coronavirushomeschooling.com. Again, that's coronavirushomeschooling.com. And if you want to go down the internet black hole and get to the end of that while feeling less confident about tomorrow, Google search Neil Ferguson and try to figure out why we all listen to him. So if you want to do something practical that will help you and your family right now, go to coronavirushomeschooling.com. And if you want to get depressed and more stressed, Google search Neil Ferguson.
Don't get depressed and more stressed. Just make sure that you're reaching out to your representatives.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. You are an incredible lady, and I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate your time. And I just, for the listeners out there that want to check out your radio show, how can they do that?
So go to samsorbo.com. Everything's up there. My YouTube videos are up there. YouTube videos to empower you to home educate. And my radio show is there. It's also live on mojo50.com. But if you just go to samsorbo.com, you'll find all the links that you could possibly desire.
Sam, you're a great American. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Likewise.
And now we shall check in with a thriver based in Houston, Texas, who is looking to secure her Paycheck Protection Program funding. And now, without any further ado, here we go. Jennifer, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, ma'am?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Hey, for the folks out there who are not familiar with what you do at shoplegacydecor.com, what exactly do you do at shoplegacydecor.com?
So we are a retail storefront, and we do actually about 75% of our business online, though.
Wow.
Selling home decor, farmhouse look, so all your interior home decor and furniture.
How long have you been doing this?
Well, this past Saturday was 5 years that the store has been open, but I've been doing it for 6 years.
Wow. Now, you have been affected by this coronavirus, just like everybody else, the coronavirus panic and the reaction to it. And just for the listeners out there that are not familiar with the story, I'll give everybody the quick overview. Neil Ferguson, the scientist who is the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, predicted that 2.2 million Americans may die as a result of being infected with the coronavirus. And then Dr. Deborah Birx decided to inform President Trump, along with the help of Dr. Fauci, that he should shut the country down. And now Dr. Deborah Birx and Fauci and Neil Ferguson are now predicting not 2.2 million American deaths. They're now predicting 61,000 American deaths. And any death is too many, but that is a significantly less number, a much smaller number than was originally predicted. And meanwhile, a lot of businesses have been affected. How has your business been affected by the coronavirus scare?
Well, we were, of course, like most other businesses, forced to close because we're not considered essential. So we closed our storefront. And where we do a lot of business online, we do a lot on Facebook, and then the customers will actually come pick up in the store. So they're really, a lot of them are still local, but they're, not able to come pick up right now even. So it did decrease our sales a lot. I mean, I really had to sell gift certificates in order to make it through March.
Now, the United States Constitution states that you and I have the right to peaceably assemble. It actually, I'll read it to you. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble, a.k.a. go to church on Easter, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. What has been your take and your mindset about this decision from elected officials to shut the economy down for the first time in the history of America?
I think, honestly, I think that it's been a bit of a change of feelings over time, because at first I didn't really take it too serious. But then as more and more businesses, started to follow suit, then you start to, I think, second guess yourself and wonder if it's maybe bigger than you think it is. But now that it's run its course for a month, and they're still not seeing the numbers that they projected, and we've made all these sacrifices and, put our economies and our businesses and our finances in this slump, and you're not seeing anything happen that you were told was going to happen. So now, I'm back on the doubt side of it. And
have you spent time looking up the Neil Ferguson report? Have you read the report?
I have read it, yes. I've spent more time, I'd say, on, the SBA calls and trying to figure out what to do,
Yeah.
for damage control.
Yes,
Really
ma'am.
is where most of my time has gone.
That makes sense because you're not a bureaucrat, you're a business owner. So what I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you on today's show is, have you applied for the Paycheck Protection Program funding, aka the 2.5 months of payroll? Have you applied for that?
Yes, so I applied. I actually had everything submitted to the bank the night before the application process was opening. So on Thursday, I believe it was April 2nd, Thursday night, I had sent it in.
And have you been funded yet, or how's the process been?
I actually got funded on Saturday. So I, again, was one of the first to get my application in. I had everything ready to go, and I know they did that form change late Thursday night, so I woke up. Y'all had actually told me about that. So I was able to fill out the new form and submit it to the bank before 8 a.m. on Friday. So that was great to have me a little bit ahead of everyone else. It took 5 days. I went with a small bank.
Yep.
I'm hearing that people are having a lot more success with the smaller banks. But I went with a small bank, and it took 5 days to get approved, and then another 2 days for me to receive the paperwork to sign. And then once the paperwork was signed and submitted, I funded right away. So that was on Saturday.
Now, I've heard from a lot of people. We have so many listeners, thousands of listeners, hundreds of thousands of listeners. I have talked to, at this point, probably 100 of them that are not clients, and they have told me that if they had not been listening to our show, they would be up a creek right now.
I would have been up a creek myself. I would have, because I would have gone to Chase, who is my big bank, and not, I wouldn't, I just would have gone to Chase, and I'd be waiting like everyone else still right now. So, it was absolutely, and like I said, it was listening and getting the guidance from y'all, and also, getting the updated form before my banker could even get it to me. Y'all had all the paperwork before my banker had the paperwork. So that was super helpful.
So let me just clarify. You actually filled out the paperwork, and from the time you filled out the Paycheck Protection Program funding, you received your funding in about 5 days. Am I correct?
7. So 5 days to
7
get
days.
approved, and then another 2 days I waited on my paperwork to come in that I needed to sign. So it was a total of 7 days.
Okay. And
on the day that I applied.
And so now that the money has been funded, have you verified the money actually went into the account?
I did, yes.
Okay. And I'm not going to ask you how much money you got funded, but I do want to provide some encouragement and or shout-outs where shout-outs are due. What's the name of the bank that you ended up going with?
I went with Texas First Bank.
Okay, Texas First Bank. Where's that located?
It is there. They have a couple different branches in my area, but of course they're only for Texas business accounts. But Galveston, Pearland, that sort of area.
How do you spell
South
Pearland?
Texas. Pearland.
Pearland?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. So you've received funding from them, and were they easy to work with? It sounds like they were a great team, very nice to work with.
They were super easy to work with. Yeah, they were great. They were really easy to work with, and I know they were inundated, and it's a stressful time. You're not sure that it's actually going to happen, or I was like, until it's in my bank account, I don't believe it.
Right.
One of those things. But they were super great to work with, very helpful. And actually, I'll be moving my accounts over there after all this from, them being so helpful and me now seeing that Chase wouldn't have done a thing for me, at least not anytime soon.
Now, final question I have for you. I know there's a lot of women listening, a lot of men listening that don't have access to coaching. They don't have access to maybe our team. And we've told the listeners out there, if they are stuck, they can reach out to us, and we won't charge a dime to help somebody get their funding. All they have to do is email us to info@thrivetimeshow.com. Could you maybe explain how Amelia or the team has helped you through the process, just to encourage any of the listeners out there that kind of feel stuck right now because they don't have any help up to this point?
Yeah, exactly. And that's, like I said, I totally would have been in that position had I not had y'all's guidance, because, I was just reading the SBA's website and, the things that they were saying. They didn't even have their own process figured out, timely. But the things that they were saying, they've not, really followed through on any of their time frames or anything. So in addition to having, y'all helped me out with the paperwork and telling me the next morning there was an updated form that I wouldn't have probably known. My banker may not have told me for a couple of days because he's got, 300-400 accounts he's trying to notify. So I was able to get it all done faster and make sure that I had everything from go. So I didn't play this back and forth game where we're missing this, we're missing that. Y'all sent me a list up front of everything that I was going to need to have so that I could be prepared. But also hearing other people's stories and knowing that, okay, the SBA said that it was going to be, 72 hours or however long it was going to be, and none of those things panned out, still gave me hope because I knew that by listening it was taking longer. And people were actually getting funded, and it was happening. It was just taking longer than we were told it would take.
Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to encourage the listeners out there. And if you're out there thinking about an early Christmas gift, or how about a end of the coronavirus gift? Like we survived the coronavirus gift. What better way to say I love you than by buying an incredible gift and piece of home decor at shoplegacydecor.com. That's shoplegacydecor.com. Again, Jennifer, thank you so much, and we're happy that you are finally funded.
Yes, thank goodness. Thank you, Clay. I appreciate it.
Take care, boss.
Yes, sir.
Bye. And now we're calling a thriver who's an excavation expert. He's always emotionally stable, and his name is Levi Gable. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Clay. Thanks for asking.
Hey, I hear that you have survived or are surviving the coronavirus shutdown. I want to know, before we answer your questions, how have you been impacted by the coronavirus, or how have you not been impacted by the coronavirus?
Well, as far as 90% of businesses out there, we've been pretty fortunate because our industry is considered essential due to some of the customers that we work for and working with public utilities and infrastructure and things like that. So we've been able to continue work. We've been pretty fortunate there. It has been a bit of a challenge to keep some of our employees engaged in working and not running scared and staying home, or just wanting to take the free money that they hear is out there and deciding to stay home. So we're doing well right now. We're keeping everybody busy, but that has been a bit of a challenge keeping everybody focused.
Well, if I could speak to that real quick, have you been to thrivetimeshow.com/coronavirus?
I have, yeah. I was actually looking for some statistics for a safety meeting that we did a couple of weeks back. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was going to tell you a couple things that are on there today. Devin, did you add the new video today, or was that John who added the new video?
It may have been John.
Okay. Well, we have a really some breaking news here as it relates to this coronavirus stuff. That's pretty amazing. And this is stuff you can share with your team here on the safety team. But initially, they were predicting 2.2 million American deaths. And I say they. Neil Ferguson, who is the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, that rolls off the tongue, he was projecting 2.2 million American deaths. And then Dr. Deborah Birx. Have you seen Dr. Deborah on TV? Have you seen her on television?
I have, yes.
I want to play this audio for those who have not seen it yet. After recommending that we shut the country down, after recommending that Dr. Fauci and Dr. Deborah Birx recommended that we shut the country down, this is what she had to say during a press conference.
About them adjusting completely their needs. This is really quite important. If you remember, that was the report that said there would be 500,000 deaths in the UK and 2.2 million deaths.
She's referring to the Neil Ferguson report.
In the United States. They've adjusted that number in the UK to 20,000. So 500,000 to 20,000.
Okay, so real quick, again, Neil Ferguson, the director of the Abdul, again, it's the Abdul, folks, the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics. He is the quote-unquote UK professor scientist who said, hey, we're going to lose potentially 2.2 million American lives. Then Dr. Deborah Birx said, President Trump, we need to shut the country down. And then she came out, step 3, and said, oops, by the way, we're adjusting that down now to 88,000 American deaths. And Levi, just to provide some context here, when you bid a job, if you are off by 25 times, would you get asked to bid a job again?
It might be a tough sell at just 25% off, but definitely 25 times. I don't think I'd get a call back. No.
Now, this is what's interesting here. This is what will blow the minds of somebody out there. Devin, have you seen this clip? This is from Dr. Scott Jensen from Minnesota. He happens to be a senator. I'm going to play the audio because, again, they predicted initially 2.2 million American deaths. Then they backed that up to 88,000 deaths. And the problem is we're not even going to get close to 88,000. So listen to what Dr. Scott Jensen, the senator, has to say about how they're deciding on the death certificate who to chalk up as having died from the coronavirus. So typically when someone dies of the coronavirus, you put on the death certificate. You put on the death certificate, you put they died of the coronavirus. But there seems to be a little bit of a debate as to who is dying from the coronavirus and who is not. And it appears as though government officials may want to inflate the number of coronavirus deaths to not seem even more wrong. So listen to this audio. This is from Dr. Scott Jensen. This just came out this morning. Here we go.
Well, in short, it's ridiculous. I spent some time earlier today just going through the CDC's manual on how to complete death certificates and the parts that were specifically written for physicians. And in that manual, it talks of precision and specificity, and that's what we were trained with. The determination of the cause of death is a big deal. It has impact on estate planning. It has impact on future generations. And the idea that we're going to allow people to massage and sort of game the numbers is a real issue because we're going to undermine the trust. And right now, as we see politicians doing things that aren't necessarily motivated on fact and science, the public's their trust in politicians is already wearing thin.
So what do you say to Dr. Fauci tonight?
Well, I would remind him that anytime healthcare intersects with dollars, it gets awkward. Right now, Medicare has determined that if you have a COVID-19 admission to the hospital, you'll get paid $13,000. If that COVID-19 patient goes on a ventilator, you get $39,000.
This just in, if you have a hospital and your hospital admits somebody with COVID-19, you get $13,000. This just in. Yeah. So you could see where a lot of hospital directors might want to say, hey, put him down as COVID, baby. Put him down as COVID. So that right there, nail in the coffin. Wow, I'm excited to open our country back up. And so with our country opening up in mind here, Levi, what questions do you have so we can help you on a very practical level now that we're back to capitalism as we know it here in the next 10 days?
So like I said, we've been doing pretty well. The last couple of years, in fact, have been pretty good years for us. So we were looking at kind of expanding into some additional services, and one of them was going to be providing our own trucking for mainly dump trucks as a service through our business. But that's kind of one of my questions is, what would be some of the benefits or potential problems with going with an additional service versus a completely separate entity?
Can you explain to me what the new services would be?
Okay, so like I said, we're a construction company, utility construction. So we do a lot of moving material, bulk material, so dirt, gravel, sand, things like that for our projects. And usually on a yearly basis, we're spending somewhere around $250,000 leasing dump trucks by the day. So that's what we would be looking at doing, would be buying some, we're looking at starting out with somewhere between 2 and 4 and just kind of growing from there, mainly to serve ourselves initially, but with the idea of expanding and providing that service as a service to other companies.
Okay, well, let's talk about this. And did you have a sheet of paper with you?
Yes, sir.
What I want to do is I want to make a pros and cons list, a list of the good things that would happen if you did it and the bad things that would happen if you did it. So the pros, if you started offering the new services, it seems as though you could make more money. Does that seem accurate? You would just be able to make more money as a result of providing more service?
Yeah, I would be able to keep it rather than passing it to a subcontractor.
So you could say retain more profits, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, as a con, who are you going to irritate? I'm not asking for the name of the company, but what kind of people are going to get mad if you take a bigger piece of the pie?
Well, obviously competitors or anyone that we're paying for that service right now, that would be a pretty safe bet that they wouldn't be too pleased with that.
So if you, let's talk about, so let's say you irritate the current subcontractors who currently provide you're saying the dump truck services?
Yes.
If you irritate them, what does that do? I mean, at the end of the day, but beyond just making them mad, what does that do to you? Does it hurt you that bad, or does it not matter?
Well, it wouldn't hurt me until I needed more than I had to provide for myself. So sometimes 2 to 4 trucks would be just fine, and then there's some days where we might have 15 to 20 trucks running for us.
Yeah, so you might get cut off.
Could be, yeah, definitely. I mean, we certainly wouldn't be that high of a priority anymore, I would expect.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little story, and don't guess who it's about, okay? Years ago, a person I know very well had a service, and for the sake of this story, we'll say his name is Clay. And so he had a DJ company back in the day, and he thought, you know what? He's referring all these photographers and party rental companies, and a lot of times when he would refer the party rental companies or the photography companies, they wouldn't be available, or maybe the quality wasn't that great. I'm sure you can relate to this kind of thing. And so one day he had the bright idea. Well, you know what he's going to do? He's gonna just start his own photography company and his own party rental company, and then just refer himself. And when this character, for this story, we'll call him Clay, began starting the party rental company and the photography company, not only did he get cut off, but he got cut off with a vengeance in a very punitive way. And in this case, for the rest of the story, I'll go with me because that's who the story is about. I didn't realize how punitive the vendors would be against me. And I became sort of like the black sheep of that industry, and it became almost impossible to hire the other. It became impossible to hire or refer other photographers or party rental companies. So, do you think it would get that hostile if you did, start your own service?
It could. I would have to guess maybe not quite to that extent, but yeah, I could definitely see it having some effects. Sure.
Okay, and then also I would just say the increased liability. Obviously, any business you get into, you have more liability. You have more profits, more liability. We're entrepreneurs. We understand risk. But have you thought about like how big the liability might be? I mean, have you thought about, wow, this could really get bad quickly, or is it pretty safe?
No, I mean, there's definitely a substantial amount of liability there. You're talking about 65 to 80,000 pound vehicles that are on the road constantly. So yeah, there's definitely liability there from a vehicular standpoint, accidents, traffic accidents, collisions, things like that.
So if it was up to me, I would start another LLC, another business. If you wanted to do it, after looking at the pros and cons, I would start another business, another LLC, another website, another logo, another insurance policy, another payroll, so that if you had something bad happen, and oh, by the way, you will, it doesn't impact everything you've been working on.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
So you wouldn't do anything to insulate from the bad things eventually happening, but at least you would isolate it to just one entity rather than all of them potentially filling that.
I would.
Burden.
I would. And again, that's based upon knowing what I know about your company. I mean, your company's been around for how many years as a family business?
40 years.
How many years?
40 years.
Yeah.
Well, we incorporated in 83, but we were started in 1980.
So you have 40 years of experience. There's probably things that you do and don't do that you don't even know why you do and don't do them. But there's probably been a lot of mistakes made over the years where your company's gotten pretty wise. It's become maybe part of the culture. And whenever you start a new service or a new product, a lot of times you're not aware of some of the common pitfalls, and therefore you become kind of a lawsuit machine those first couple of years. And I would just hate for you to put at risk a 40-year-old company for short-term potential more profits. So I would open up a new thing. That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
Is that helpful at all, or do you still have more questions about that, or?
Yeah, definitely. Another question I have was just kind of how do you know when it's the right time to pull the trigger on something like that? I guess that's probably a pretty loaded question.
Do the finances make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I've been working on the finances and trying to itemize every single, overhead expense, maintenance, fuel, insurance, GPS for the trucks, cameras on the trucks, uniforms, all of those things, and kind of seeing how that plays out on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis, year over year. And yeah, it definitely appears that there's that it would make sense to do.
Did you qualify or did you apply for the Paycheck Protection Program loan?
I did, yes, sir.
And have you been funded yet?
I just checked about 30 minutes ago, and I have not.
Okay, and so you're probably not going to get funded on that for the next couple days. We've had about a dozen clients now get funded, but it's going to take a while. But also, once the Paycheck Protection Program funding gets completed here over the next 3 weeks through the Small Business Administration, did you also apply for the economic disaster funding, the 30-year loan at the low interest rate?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I would seize that funding and go open up your new thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would. Have you looked into the terms on that? I mean, it's a 30-year.
So how would you go about? I know that the funding on the PPP is pretty specific, at least if you want that forgiven.
Yes.
Now, if you do the EIDL loan, are there any stipulations on how that money can be used? Or would the SBA have an issue? Let's say you take that money and in this instance, we would, I'm guessing, pay it as income.
Well,
and then basically pull that money and start it so that it would be completely separate.
Well, the Paycheck Protection Program funding is 2.5 times your monthly payroll, and you don't have to pay it back as long as you use it for the within the guidelines of what it's intended for, which is payroll and utilities and operating expenses. Now, the second program is called the Economic Disaster Loan Emergency Advance, and this program, if you apply for this and you meet the industry standards, which I believe that you would, you're going to have access to up to $2 million of funding on a 30-year term at a 3.75% interest rate. I've never seen interest rates that low, nor have I seen it over that amount of time. So I would apply for that, and if you get it, I would look at utilizing it to expand and buy these new trucks. Now, if it says the new trucks have to be a part of your current LLC, your current business, you can't use it to start another thing, that's fine. Then I would just beef up the insurance. But I would apply and see what you qualify for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so on that EIDL, while we're talking about that,
yep.
Any idea on how long that process takes?
I have some very close. I have some.
I'm sorry.
I have some very high up elected officials that are friends of mine, and I'll just tell you, I can't mention who said it and all that. Is that I know the Paycheck Protection Program was the number one most important thing for the Small Business Administration to get done, because it essentially protected jobs. Okay, so at Priority Bank, where my wife and I were funded through, they've already helped save something like 5,000 jobs. Because when people got, these small businesses that were shut down, received that funding, they hired all their people back. So their top priority was that. But I have been told by people with very high up positions that the Economic Injury Disaster Loan funding probably will not be available for another 30 to 60 days.
Okay.
That's what I've been told, based upon their ability to, because all of that, the entire Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program is all being managed through the Small Business Administration, currently at least, not through the local bank, and that's just a lot of loans to look at.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
But does that provide any clarity at all? Because if you can get that funding at a 30-year, at a 3.75% rate, obviously you could pay it off early, but that gives you a lot of margin for error.
No, that definitely helps out, and we had talked about maybe the potential of doing something like that, but whenever we were talking about it, it would be, it would be me and my brother that would be partners on this new venture, and trying to figure out how to get the money from here to there. And that was kind of what I had thought it would look like, is basically income for he and I, and then we take that and put it into a separate company. That way it's completely separated from our current business.
Now,
I guess that's as long as there's no stipulations on how that money can be used.
Yeah. Now, I'm just make sure I'm clarifying. The Paycheck Protection Program funding, you could not use that to buy trucks. You would have to use that to make payroll.
Right.
But for this new program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Emergency, this program here is designed for stimulating the economy. And so it's designed for expansion. It's designed for growth. It's designed to prime the pump and to get America going and to give you an incentive to do it now. And so when you apply for that, I mean, I have no idea how much you'll get approved for, but I would use it to expand if you can.
Okay. Yeah, based on the numbers, it looks like we should be somewhere on kind of on the higher range of the limit there on that one. So hopefully that will come through. It said that our application had been received through the SBA website about 2 weeks ago. And on the other loan, the PPP loan, my banker told me that we were approved, I believe it was last Monday, but they're still waiting on guidance.
Which bank are you? Did you apply through?
Security Bank here in Tulsa.
Okay, yeah. Well, let me give you a list, if I can, and I'll send this to you as soon as we get off the phone here, of banks that have actually funded clients so far.
Okay.
And I'll give you all the contact information in just a moment, so you'll have it. I know that Arvest Bank has funded our clients. Bank First has funded our clients. First Priority Bank at 105th Memorial has funded many clients. Security Bank, which you just referenced, they have funded Josh at Living Water Irrigation and other companies. RCB Bank has now funded. Equity Bank has now funded, and Bank First again funded there. So I'll provide you a list with the contact information, and if you'll just look at it this way, banks are receiving a typical small bank, let's say a community bank. They might do 20 loans in a month, maybe 40, maybe 50. Some of these banks are receiving over 1,000 applications, so they're getting asked to do 20 times more loans than they ever do in a busy month, with a full staff, with no fear of the coronavirus, where everyone's coming to work. They're not broken. People aren't working from home. The most some of these banks ever do is 50 loans a month. And now they're being asked to do 50 times more loans in many cases.
Well, Clay, that'd be an acceptable deviation if they were playing by the same rules that the people who made the predictions on the deaths were playing by.
Now you're just getting into facts. I have a final question for you before I let you get out of here. I have a final question for you.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of the thing called the Constitution?
I am, vaguely, yes.
Okay, well, vaguely, the First Amendment gives us the right to peaceably assemble. That's a thing. And I'm a big constitutional guy. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know why I'm into that founding document there. I'm kind of old school. But the idea of the First Amendment right is we had the right to peaceably assemble. It reads, I'll read it here. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble for Easter and to petition the government for a redress of the grievances. Does it bother you at all that America took a report produced by a Saudi Arabian-backed organization written by a guy named Neil Ferguson, that we took the information produced by the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics? So we took that report, and with doing very little vetting, we just recommended, we as in Dr. Deborah Birx and Dr. Fauci, recommended shutting our entire country down, thus running roughshod over the First Amendment. Does that bother you, or how do you process that?
Yeah, it definitely bothers me that is how this whole thing is played out. Kind of scratched my head several times wondering why President Trump would have made that call. It seems, and this is just my opinion, and I'm not the most
No, I just want to get your take on it.
people, but there's presidents out there that make decisions to go to war where more people die than this. And then you could just about name several other types of real heavy decisions that presidents have to make that affect more lives than this. And so to just shut down the entire economy, it just makes you scratch your head, because you've got to think, let's say if they do have 100,000 people that end up passing away, that's a horrible number.
Yep.
But how many people are going to commit suicide because they're financially ruined, or any other effects that we could see in the days, months, years to come following all of this coronavirus shutdown fiasco?
Some of our listeners have told me that if they didn't listen to our show, they would have no idea that the initial report that projected 2.2 million deaths was written by the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, and they would have no idea that number of 2.2 million has now been adjusted to 61,000 projected deaths, 57,000 to 61,000. Would you have known that if you didn't listen to this show, or do you get your information from other news sources, or would you have known about those initial predictions and who they came from if you weren't aware of this show?
No, I don't think I have. I've kind of kept up on the news on this a little more than most other things, just because it affects the business so closely. But they kind of just think that stuff in, and then whenever they change those numbers down, it was just like an afterthought. There was no big deal saying, "Oh, it's a great thing. We're adjusting from this to this." It was just kind of sneaking in there and see if they could get by you, and talking about the new number just as it's as horrible as the old number was.
I have one more question, I guess, for you. One more sneaky question. There's one of the key officials for the World Health Organization came out and recommended this. I'm going to play the audio. I'd like to get your reaction to it. Then I'll let you get back to doing all the excavation type things that you do, my friend. So here's the audio. Let me cue it up. I just want to get your take as a man on the street, as a business owner, as a guy who's more of a Main Street entrepreneur than a Wall Street entrepreneur. I just want to get your take. Let me cue this up here. Here we go.
Last week, Dr. Michael Ryan, he's a leader at the World Health Organization, announced that in response to the spread of this virus, authorities may have to enter people's homes and remove family members, presumably by force.
In most parts of the world, due to lockdown, most of the transmission that's actually happening in many countries now is happening in the household, at family level. In some senses, transmission has been taken off the streets and pushed back into family units. Now we need to go and look in families to find those people who may be sick and remove them and isolate them in a safe and dignified manner.
Just so you know, we're coming to your house, seizing your children, and, quote, isolating them in a safe and dignified manner. Last week,
what do you think about that sound clip?
I hadn't heard that. That's quite surprising. If I don't know, I would have never believed that was even an idea that was being thrown around there.
I just cannot believe that's a recommendation from the World Health Organization. Is we're going to come into your house in a dignified manner, by the way, take your kids away from you as our plan to stop the coronavirus. It's just unbelievable. But I appreciate you, man, for doing things that make sense, like excavating, like running a business, like employing people. And if you have any other questions at all ever, don't be a stranger. But I'm excited to see what you qualify for on the economic disaster relief portion of this stimulus, because I do think it might be a great opportunity for you to expand your business with with capital that's easily available at a very low cost.
Oh yeah, we're looking forward to that as well, and hoping that we'll be approved for that.
All right, brother. Well, you take care, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Hey, you too. Thanks, Clay.
See you, boss. And now we're going to call a great thriver by the name of Paul Hood. He owns an accounting firm with thousands and thousands of clients all throughout the great United States. And we're also going to be reuniting with my good friend Eugene Willis. I've known this guy for years and years and years. I went to college with him. His name is Eugene Black Thunder Willis. My name is Clay White Lightning Clark. It's going to be a fascinating rendezvous. And so now, without any further ado, here we go. Paul Hood, you're looking good, my friend. How are you?
I'm outstanding, buddy. How are you?
Man, I'm fired up to talk to you today because you are a CPA. You do work with thousands of clients, and it turns out that between 16 and 17 million Americans find themselves without a job today.
Sure.
I would argue the number's a lot higher than that, but many Americans are trying to sort out this stimulus package, and specifically our listeners are mostly self-employed.
Right.
So I want to talk about the Paycheck Protection Program.
Okay.
One, we know that if you want to apply for the program, you need to go to your local bank or your local credit union. You need to go there.
Right.
And then the bank is authorized to give you up to 2.5 times your monthly payroll, and you don't have to pay it back as long as you follow the conforming standards or the protocols there that are laid out in the program. Can you talk to the listeners about what kind of documentation, what kind of forms, maybe unpack, what do they need to bring to the table? What do they need to bring to their local bank to get funded?
Okay, so Clay, what matters is if they have an existing relationship with their bank, it's a lot easier. So your bank, if you've already got an existing relationship, you've set up an account or whatever, they already have, if you're an entity, an LLC or a corporation, they already have your organizing documents. So then all you have to do is provide them proof some sort of proof of your calculation of what your average payroll is. Now, typical of the government, it's not just your average payroll. It's your gross payroll, not your employer side of the taxes, plus any health insurance, any 401k, plus state unemployment, and you take 12 months of that and get your average and then multiply that times 2.5%. So typically you're bringing in your state unemployment forms, your Form 941s, your payroll tax forms. And if you don't have an existing relationship with the bank, you have to bring in your organizing documents if you have an entity, Clay.
Okay, so let's talk about this, the 941s. 941s. What's a 941 for the folks out there that do not know what that is?
Okay, so when you have payroll, so you calculate payroll checks. So that may be on a weekly, a biweekly, a semi-monthly, monthly basis. And then that, all of the data from that is summarized on a quarterly report that is due once every 3 months called a 941. And so on that 941, you're reporting to the IRS what your gross payroll was, what your taxable amount is for Social Security and Medicare, how much you withheld out of the employees' checks for their side of it, and it adds all up, and then throughout the months you've made payments, and then you reconcile the money you've already sent to the IRS with what you're supposed to send. You do that once a quarter, and at the end of the year, then you do the W-2s, which reconcile the 4 quarters, Clay.
So once we have our 941s, we have our operating documents. Let's say we don't have our operating documents. I hear a lot of people say, hey, I have an LLC.
Mm-hmm.
I have my identification, my ID. I have my 941s, but I don't know where my operating agreements are. How can people get that?
So you can contact the Secretary of State. So if you're in Oklahoma, you can contact the Secretary of State and get a copy of it. Oftentimes, it's fairly generic documents. There's actually companies out there for $100 you can order this book, and it has organizing documents in. Or if you've got a relationship with an attorney, which most of these entities should have been set up by an attorney, then surely they'll have a copy of it. But if you go to the bank and you don't have these documents, and you give them a copy of a tax return, you give them a copy of, they can get on with the Secretary of State and see that it's a valid entity. So a lot of times there's a workaround on that, but it's that the organizing documents are with the Secretary of State, not the Oklahoma Tax Commission.
I feel as though, and maybe I'm wrong, I feel as though many clients are wondering if they're ever going to get funded. So I made a list of real clients that have been funded today that I know of. Shaw Homes has been funded, and that's a great thing for Shaw Homes, Oklahoma's largest home builder. Chris Tracy with CT Technology just received funding. Great job, Chris Tracy. Aromascapes just received funding from Arvest Bank. Travis Williams with Williams Construction. Shepherd's Fold has received funding. You have First Choice Custom Homes with Ryan Green has received funding. A New Image has received funding. Living Water Irrigation has received funding. Whitlock Cosmetics has received funding. Paul, who is helping out your clients the most right now? Do you have a specific bank that you would recommend, or a specific banker that you might recommend for our listeners out there?
Yeah, so we've sent business to 2 different people. One is my normal banker, which is Dara Harris at Trudy Federal Credit Union.
Got it.
And then a majority of them, though, have been to a friend of mine, good OSU buddy, Chris Batchelder, who is a senior vice president with Arvest Bank out of Bartlesville. Has done a bang-up job. Just a ton of clients we've sent over there.
So you've had a very good experience there.
Outstanding experience. He's, it's overwhelming, but it's just like everything else. There's not a huge amount of money in it for the banks. There is some money, but it's also, so you need to, just like bankers are like anybody else. You can have accountants that, are kind of number generating, or you can have accountants that are business people. And Dara and Chris, Dara at Credit Union, Trudy, and Chris Batchelder at Arvest are both business-minded, and so they really take an ownership. That's the key, is they take an ownership to make sure things get done.
If you have a business and you need to claim this Paycheck Protection funding, you need to apply now. Folks, listen, there's $349 billion available from the federal government for the stimulus. Paul, why don't you want to wait to get to the end of the funding train before you apply? Why don't you want to just sit on it and wait?
Well, as of now, there's a limit. There's only $349 billion available, and they've taken in a lot of applications. And, Clay, the thing I would say is don't prejudge whether you qualify. I've had multiple clients that I picked up the phone and said, hey, have you applied for this? Well, no, we don't really think we qualify. Well, stop it. And, there's been I've got one client that got $1.5 million. Another one got $1.1 million.
Shunda.
That didn't think they qualified. And so they did it. Secondly, if you do get funded, you need to set up a separate account. You need to keep that money segregated and then reimburse yourself so there's a clear audit trail so that we don't have issues with whether that money was spent for one thing or another. It's clearly separated.
I would like to, if it's okay, I want to check in with one of my buddies who's not a business owner. He is a man who's been to college for a long time. He's an educated guy, Paul. He moved just recently from the great state of California because things were getting a little crazy there in California.
I'd say so.
His name is Eugene, and I'm going to get him on the phone here. And I'd like for you to ask Eugene a little bit why he decided to leave the great state of California. Because we, as Oklahomies, we're not dealing with as much craziness as what they're dealing with right now on the left coast.
Okay.
And I think that your mind would be blown if you heard the kind of jackassery that's going on in California. Will he pick up?
Hello?
Black Thunder!
White Lightning.
What's up, dude? How are you?
Great. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm excited to have you here on the Thrive Time Show. We have Paul Hood. He's a CPA with thousands of clients. Eugene, you've been to college. For how long have you been to college, my friend? How long have you been in college and gone through college?
Too many years, 11 years.
Oh, unbelievable. You get a mega point for that. Yeah. Now, Paul Hood is here. And Paul Hood, how long did you have to go to college to become a CPA?
I've been in college for 6 years, but I started on a law degree, so only 4 years. It currently is 5 years to be a CPA. I only had to do 4.
Now, I was explaining to Paul before you picked up that you have decided to leave the great state of California to move to Missouri during this corona craziness. Paul, feel free to ask Eugene any questions about his experience in California, because I was telling you,
sure,
he decided to move to the Midwest. What questions do you have for Eugene Black Thunder? He's been to college for 11 years. He knows a little bit about everything. He's kind of dangerous.
Sure. So, Eugene, my question is are the people out there really that nuts? I mean, I saw a video today of there's nobody on a beach, and this dude is jogging on the beach. Nobody around him. He's not jogging with somebody else, not holding hands, jogging on the beach. And a cop starts chasing him. And so I don't understand.
That sounds accurate.
Yeah, so talk to me about the craziness that's going on out there.
I think you have a lot of people who think they know everything, and I think that's a dangerous thing. So you went to college for 6 years. I've gone for 11. Clay is obviously a very educated, articulate individual, highly intelligent. And I think a lot of people, when they think they have all the answers, when they actually need answers, they don't know how to react. So I think my experience in California has been great, but it's also taught me that you have to have humility, which a lot of Midwesterners have, and not to say that many Californians don't, but I think when you have a collection of people, particularly in LA, where they lead with their resume, they don't lead with their character or who they are as a person. They lead with, I went to Stanford, I went to Harvard, I'm a millionaire, I know Tom Cruise, I know Brad Pitt, I know this person. And I'm just asking you, how are you today? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
when you have people who lead with that's their mentality. And me, I don't really lead with, I know, Bob, Bill, and Johnny. Like, I don't really care who you know. I'm trying to find out who you are as a person. But I think, I hope that kind of, encapsulates kind of what I'm trying to display. But it's like, so many people, they think they know everything. They think because their degree or their education, they think that makes them superior in a sense. And I've kind of encountered that many times where it's like a very elitist mindset. And I think that's dangerous once you start actually kind of believing your quote unquote press clippings.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So like if an athlete like LeBron James is like, oh yeah, I'm the greatest thing ever.
I think I
kind
could
of
take
take
you.
away from, from working hard and doing those little things to just be a good person and foundationally. And I think in the Midwest, people don't lead with, oh, I went to this school, I know this person, I have this amount of money. They're just saying, hey, how are you today? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You having a good day?
So is
and
it?
they're leaving it at that, right? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's kind of like the mindset that's kind of very pervasive in the two places I live out there in Sacramento and California and Los Angeles, where you encounter that. In Sacramento, it's more on the political angle and business angle. And then in LA, it's kind of an encapsulation of all those different things from business, obviously, the movie industry, and then everything else. So
Yeah. What's weird to me is they seem to think they're progressive, like they're
right.
forward thinking, but the reality is they're backwards thinking. Because to me, that is prejudging. That is prejudging, and so they're concerned they're being prejudged, so they have to lead with, "Hey, look at me. Let me peacock for you a while." Versus if I see somebody on the street, I don't care what they look like. I don't care what. Dude, I do really, really well. I grew up in a family, and nobody on either side of my family ever even went to high school or finished high school besides my mom.
Exactly.
And I do extremely well now. God has blessed me. But I can, I don't care if I'm going to a restaurant, if I'm going to go to a store. I'll go in my sweats and a T-shirt and half the time my slippers or whatever. I don't care what other people think about me because I know, one, what God thinks about me. I know who I am and how I treat people. But these people out there on the extremes, do you think, would you agree? They seem to prejudge other people, and they're afraid they're being prejudged, so they have to lead with this stuff.
Yeah, I've lived in Florida, I've lived in Illinois, I've lived in Missouri, I've lived in Oklahoma, I've lived in California. And by far the most, I guess, if we want to, go on the topic of progressive politics, the most racism, the most judgment I've ever faced has been in California.
Yeah.
Because in other places, when I'm in Florida, going hunting with, people who are looked at as, let's say, quote unquote, rednecks or whatever, like they treated me good, right? If I'm in Oklahoma, because I don't come out with a chip on my shoulder. And if I respect people, they would give me that same respect. Where in California, it doesn't matter about respect. You can say hello to someone, and the thing I've gotten so many times there is, oh, do I know you? You know what I mean? Like,
do I
that
know
kind of
you?
mentality, and it's like, it's very opposite. And if you actually real factual in Los Angeles, you will get torn down. So like, we'll talk about presidential politics, and not to get too political, but if you say, oh my gosh, you're a black guy, you must have loved Barack Obama. And I'm like, I respected him.
Sure.
I thought he was a dynamic speaker and leader in his own right. But I'm like, when I actually break down some of the facts of what he actually did, people say, oh, you must be a Republican, or you must like Trump. And I'm like, no. And I didn't even make a comment or statement or inference or suggestion, anything that I like Trump. But if you actually factual on what he did, oh, okay, Obama, let's say Obama deported 3 million people. Obama had very Wall Street policies. Obama had X, Y, and Z. People say, oh, what the hell's wrong with you? You're black. Why don't you like
Hey, listen. Listen. I have a tough question. I have final two tough questions for you, Eugene.
Yeah, bring it.
Question number one will be a tough question. We'll start there, and then we'll get easier. Are you still black?
You know what? I don't know, man. When I'm factual about another black guy, I don't know, man. I think I'm. Yes,
I wanted to clarify. I wanted to get that out there. I want to make sure we go across the politically incorrect line. We'll come back now. I just want to make sure you're still black. Okay, so now that you are an African American, you've been a good friend of mine for a long time. Neil Ferguson came out and said 2.2 million Americans could die from the coronavirus. 2.2. Neil Ferguson, who is the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, and as a black man, as an African American, as a man who has 11 years of education, as an attorney, he predicted 2.2 million American deaths, 2.2 million American deaths. Now we're talking about Dr. Deborah Birx and Dr. Fauci. They said we got to shut the country down. Now they're predicting 61,000 deaths.
Right.
Mathematically speaking, how
what
wrong?
reduction is that?
I'm just saying, how wrong?
Percentage-wise.
Well, check this out. If only 200,000 people died, he would be only wrong by 10 times. And you start doing the math. So mathematically speaking, how wrong can Neil Ferguson, continue to be before we no longer have to listen to when he's talking? Or how wrong as a percentage, are you done listening to them talking now? Are you still listening to them talking?
That's the thing. Once you start actually attacking, now they're not going to attack your message. They're going to attack you.
That's right.
You know, it's never about attacking the actual facts of the case. They're going to attack you. And they're going to try to find something. Well, you didn't tie your shoe when you were in 4th grade, or you spit on or you littered when you were in 8th grade. You're a bad person. So it's never actually going to address the facts of the case.
I'm asking
so that's
you.
why you almost have to practice
asking you the
3
questions.
times to say, well, you know what? I'm not perfect, and well, you know, I am this, and yeah, well, I am that.
I'm asking
However,
you the
based
question,
on those facts,
and I lived with you in college, so I know that there was a time where you and I ate some pizza that probably wasn't ours. We probably weren't. We weren't. But that's what I'm saying. But at what point does Neil Ferguson lose any credibility? And then when did Neil Ferguson ever earn credibility with you, Black Thunder?
Well, I mean, never did. I mean, if you're factual, and everybody's wrong. We'll say that at the outset. Everybody is wrong. Nobody is perfect. However, when you're that wrong and you're that imprecise, if you have some humility, at least we can address you in a respectable manner and say, you know what, look, this person is humble. They say, you know what, based on the calculations, the data I had, it was drastically wrong. And you know what, I have to take accountability for that, but I was basing it on X, Y, and Z factors.
Fair enough.
So at least if you come out and you're humble and you actually have some contrition about the drastically horrible information that you provided and the panic, we can give you some credit and say, hey, look, buddy, we all been there. We've all been bad. We've all been wrong. We've all had bad days. But when you've led to 16 million people being on unemployment and all these other things, you better get on your hands and knees and beg for forgiveness.
Amen.
I mean, that's my approach. But when you continue to lead with, well, this and well, that, and you come off on your high horse, and then, like I say, if you critique the facts, you're going to get attacked as that you're wrong or that you want people to die. Right? I actually had somebody say that to me, like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. Or you hate people? Do you want people to die? And I'm like, what? I'm a healthy guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've had no symptoms. I eat healthy. I don't smoke.
Wait a minute. Did you say a high horse? Was that in reference to the dispensaries still being deemed essential?
High.
Well, yeah, right, yeah. Exactly, right. We got California, right? Probably has 1,000 dispensaries open, right? People smoking. I saw a lady buying 2 cartons of cigarettes wearing a face mask.
Oh.
And I have to ask, I was like, ma'am, I'm sorry, but, why buy 2 cartons of cigarettes and wear the face mask? Why? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think
doesn't
the
make
cigarettes
sense.
are going to cause some damage there. She was like, well, I'm trying to be safe. I'm like, no, you're not.
So,
No, you're not.
He's not afraid of that nicotine,
Right,
but that
but
coronavirus, I'm gonna watch out for that.
Yeah, right.
Boy, I tell you, you said
she's
one
gonna blame
thing.
the coronavirus and she gets sick, right?
That's right.
Not the 2 packs of cigarettes a day she's cramming down her lungs, right? So I
Boy.
can't point that out, but I'm the bad guy because I don't wear a face mask everywhere I go.
Paul's
right?
got 30 seconds left. You have the final take.
Well, I just wanted to congratulate you on one of the most profound things you've said, and I've been saying to people all the time, and I'm really looking for somebody on the other side of the aisle that I consider as intelligent that can talk to me, because the problem is focus on the freaking message, not the messenger.
Yes.
And we have this system where we elect people based on popularity contests, which by definition has nothing to do with the message. What do you freaking stand for? Doesn't mean I hate you. Doesn't mean if I disagree with you, I'll go to dinner with you, but I'm not going to call you names. So if we would get to a point where we would quit focusing on the messenger and focus on the
I've been
message.
called so many names, you can't believe it.
Well-
Just because I'm factual. Me and you, we might have different political affiliations, but we probably have more in common.
Well, okay,
than the
let me say
people,
this. Let me
you
say,
know,
Paul,
you know what
no.
I mean?
Yeah.
You're going to come at me with respect.
No.
You're not going to care about who I know, how much money
that's
I have.
a bunch of crap.
all these other factors that are relevant.
I only like you because you're black. I hate white people. We've talked about this.
I want in that club. Anytime
I hear crackers talk, anytime I hear those whites, I always say if it's white, it can't be right.
There you go.
Hey, Eugene,
You've been watching your CNN, man. You've been getting your talking points. Let's pop up a token guy who doesn't know anything, who's factually incorrect, and then we'll make ourselves feel better, right?
That's
Like,
right.
come on, you know.
I'm gonna have you on a show tomorrow about dark black Jesus or no Jesus is my new book I'm working on.
Oh boy.
Oh wow, you're really going after
He's
it,
going
aren't you?
deep.
I
Now.
hate white people. Get off the show, white people. Hey, Black Thunder.
Let me ask you something though. Have you guys been to California, and what was your experience?
I went there, and I felt like the resorts that I stayed at were insulated from the truth, and occasionally I
Right.
left the truth, and I thought, uh-oh. I mean, the homeless population was so high, even though the biggest time of economic prosperity under both Obama and Trump, we have so many homeless people. I mean, the country can't get any better economically speaking.
And a third are in California, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
because the
it's
weather's
bad.
nice.
A third are in California alone, right?
Yeah. Now, here's the deal, Eugene. I promise I'm going to call you to have you on the show again. Thank you for being on the show. I've got to call one more guest who's a great American, and I will miss you, but thank you for joining us.
It's good to talk to two white guys, man. You know?
Hey, my grandfather said he was half black, so he was full-blood
said
Indian.
two
He was
white
full-blood
guys?
Indian, so I can walk the aisle, baby, both sides.
You said two
Yeah,
white
there you
guys.
go, there
First
you
off,
go.
I'm very offended. Paul is Native American, and I'm as black as can be. I'm an albino
Yes,
African
you
American, and I'm offended. I'm hanging up on you. All right.
See you, Gene.
And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom! Over the years, has it been a struggle to grow your business? Are you just kind of struggling to put everything you're learning together into a cohesive plan that you can actually implement? That sounds like me. What if you had access to a step-by-step proven plan taught by a business coach with a proven track record of helping thousands of entrepreneurs just like you to increase their profitability on a month-to-month basis? And what if my business coaching program had actually been coaching clients since before the Great Recession? What if you are working with a coach who knows how to coach you through difficult times? And imagine if this program was actually affordable. I'm talking about super affordable, like in a perfect world affordable, like less money than it would cost you to hire even one minimum wage full-time employee.
Yeah. Let me talk to the manager.
At a time where Inc. magazine now reports that by default, 96% of businesses will fail within 10 years, my clients grew last year at a rate of 104%. Yeah, 104%. But can you prove it? Check out thrivetimeshow.com and click on testimonials to see the faces of my real clients and to hear their real stories about how they've really grown their businesses. These are real people just like you, real moms, real dads, real daughters, real men and women that have actually grown their companies, on average by 104% this past year. How's that possible? Well, I personally take the time to write each and every business plan, which is why I only take on 160 clients. I then use my team to help you execute your plan for your business. And my team is great, including graphic designers, photographers, and videographers, web developers, search engine optimizers, and accounting coaches to help you get on top of your numbers. And they do all of this for less money than it would cost you to hire even one full-time minimum wage employee. Does it sound too good to be true? Just visit thrivetimeshow.com and click on the testimonials button and you'll see their stories. You'll see real people now having huge success. Schedule your one-on-one consultation with me right now by going to thrivetimeshow.com. Again, that's thrivetimeshow.com. Schedule your 13-point assessment with me. I'm going to spend about a half hour to an hour with you to figure out where you're stuck.
Well, right now I'm having a mental block. Every time I try to go on them internets and go to thrivetimeshow.com, I find myself sending myself an MP3 via my new fax machine app on my new phone.
Well, in that case, we probably can't help you, but for everybody else, we should be fine. Just go to thrivetimeshow.com and schedule a one-on-one consultation with me. I'm going to figure out your biggest limiting factors. I'm going to go through a 13-point assessment with you to find out where you're stuck, where your growth opportunities are, and I'm going to take the time needed to type out a step-by-step plan that we're going to help lead you down together. This is going to be your year to thrive, but you have to schedule that 13-point assessment right now by going to thrivetimeshow.com. Now, recently, my good friend John Lee Dumas from the Entrepreneurs on Fire podcast, which is one of the top 5 business podcasts of all time, he reached out to me and said, Clay, I'd like to have you on my show, and I'd like to ask you about why you coach your clients. And so now, without any further ado, here's the audio clip of John Lee Dumas interviewing me about why I continue to coach clients after all these years.
You've long ago achieved financial freedom, achieved time freedom, and that's amazing things. And a lot of people who are listening might be like, why is this guy not on a beach in Puerto Rico, just like sipping Mai Tais and like just relaxing? What motivates you to coach your clients? What is the real reason?
Well, I got several reasons, but I believe and I know it is entirely possible to go to college, to earn a degree, and to learn very little about how to earn money. In fact, as a general rule, most of the general education out there is kind of like it's like memorizing the History Channel. It's like you learned a lot about the Byzantine Empire, and it might be fascinating, but it's not wealth creating. And I grew up in a home where my dad delivered pizzas at Domino's. He worked the night shift at Quick Trip convenience stores to pay the bills. And I sincerely mean this. I thought that my father didn't like me until I was able to hire him when I was 27 years old. And I was talking with my dad, and I'm like, Dad, why were you always working? He's like, to put food on the table. Now, my dad has a college degree from Oral Roberts University. And imagine what that felt like as a kid. And a lot of your listeners can relate to this. My dad just worked his ass off constantly because he wanted to provide. But my dad wasn't one of those dads who comes home and goes, that's right, I've been working for you. He was a quiet guy. He just worked. And from the age of 27, when I hired my dad, he's like, what do you want? What am I going to do for you, son? I said, you can just come be a dad. I'll put you on payroll. You can help me with the books. I need someone I can trust. He moved from Minnesota to Tulsa to come work with me. And when he died of Lou Gehrig's on September 5th, 3 years ago, I can honestly say I had no regrets. I got all that time with my dad. And there's so many people out there that are exchanging all of their time for very little money. And that just makes zero sense. And if you're gonna go out there today and hire a minimum wage employee, let's say you're in the great state of Michigan or something, okay? You hire an employee for $12 an hour, $11 an hour. Let's say you're in Oklahoma, you hire someone for $7.25 an hour. If you hire somebody for $12 an hour after payroll taxes and they work for you 40 hours a week for 4.3 weeks a month, that means that you're going to pay that person $2,064 a month before factoring in payroll taxes and providing them an office and all the costs of hiring them and finding them and recruiting them. And you know what I mean? There's a lot of costs, hidden costs associated with hiring somebody. And for less money than it would cost you to hire even one full-time minimum wage employee, we can change your life and we will change your life. And I am serious about it. My dad recently died, and that's not fun, but man, how terrible would my life have been if I didn't have certain key mentors in my life? And I'll tell you this, none of my mentors reached out to me. I had to go pay these people. I paid Michael Levine, the PR consultant for Michael Jackson and Prince and Nike, best-selling author Michael Levine. He worked with Charlton Heston. I paid HomeSkillet $25,000 to teach me how PR works. $25,000. And it was worth every dollar of it because now I can get my clients like Josh with Living Water Irrigation on the Kelly Clarkson show and the Today Show, and I can get clients like OxyFresh on Fox News. I know how to do it now. But $25,000. I paid Bruce Clay, I think it was $8,000 a month for 12 consecutive months to learn how search engines work. I mean, and I'm glad I did, but JLD, that's some money right there. And I paid as I went.
That's some dough.
I paid some money. And if I was right now and I wanted to be a podcaster, I'd pay you to learn how to podcast because it turns out you know how to podcast. And then if I didn't have the motivation to keep podcasting every day, I'd pay you whatever that fee is. I'd call and go, JLD, how'd you stay motivated when you had 2 downloads a week? Because remember that when you started, the momentum was against you. Before you met Kate, you're getting that momentum going. It's you against the world. You're recording. You got 2 downloads a week, maybe 5 a week. And then all of a sudden people go, oh, man, must be nice. And you go, yeah, I enjoyed the process, but People don't see the messy middle. The messy middle is the gap between the result that you want to get to and the dream that you just had last night. And somebody has to bridge the gap. And most people who are successful like to travel, not me. So most people who who are successful like to go on vacations, not me. They like to go to NFL games, not me. They like to go to parties, not me. They have hobbies and other interests, not me. It's just my wife, my 5 kids, and growing companies. That's all I got. If you're looking for a guy who's the most interesting man in the world, that's not me. But I live behind a wall at Camp Clark and Chicken Palace, where I myopically focus on my clients, and I feel it's a calling from the Latin word meaning the word vocation, meaning calling. I feel like I'm called to do this, and this is what I was called to do. I'm almost 40 years old. I don't know how many more years I have left on this great planet, but this is what I'm going to do. I'll be a 70-year-old doing this, and my hero in the game of business is Paul Graham. Paul Graham's my hero. If you Google search Paul Graham, he's the coach behind Airbnb, Dropbox, and Reddit. And he was the one who kind of paved the way for what I want to do. And Paul Graham's my inspiration.
Fire Nation, if you are literally not pressing pause right now and visiting thrivetimeshow.com/EOFire, check your pulse. I mean, with what Clay just shared, with the immense amount of free value that he's delivering to you on that site, it's just unbelievable. The assessment, the website check, the books, all the jazz, his passion transferred to you and your business, injecting it, especially during these crazy times, Fire Nation. This is what you need. So you know this, Fire Nation. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and you've been hanging out with CC and JLD today. So keep up that heat and head over to thrivetimeshow.com/EOFire. The next stage in your life, Fire Nation, the next stage in your business starts at the end of that URL. Hit it, make it happen. Clay, Josh, thank you both for sharing your truth, your value with Fire Nation today. For that, we salute you, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Take care.